man walks into a police station because he has been raped. He meets the SHO and he asks the SHO to register an FIR. And the SHO says, I'm sorry, we cannot register an FIR because the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita does not have a provision to book a case of a rape of a man. Then what does the man do? Now, this is not just the case with a man. This is also a case with a trans person, a trans woman, or a trans man. If a trans person is raped, again, the same thing happens. They don't have a legal recourse because the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita does not have a provision which sees a man as a victim of rape or a trans person as a victim of rape, or for that matter, even an animal as a victim of rape. Now, why is it that India still does not have gender neutral laws? That is the question that we are asking. We decided to report this important story because India definitely needs gender neutral rape laws. And once we reported the story, a petition was also filed in the Delhi High Court, and the Delhi High Court decided to hear this petition on October 7th. So that's an impact of the story that we have been reporting on this issue. Now, coming back to BNS, why is it that BNS does not have a provision? And what does BNS really say? So the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, section 63 of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita is a section that talks about rape. Now, section 63 of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita defines the offence of rape. It replaces former section 375 of the Indian Penal Code, which is the IPC. The law outlines specific sexual acts and the circumstances under which those acts constitute the crime of rape. Now, according to the BNS, a man commits the act of rape if he does these acts on a woman, which means that section 63 of the BNS only sees a man as the perpetrator and a woman as the victim. Now, what does it say? It says a man commits the offense if he performs any of these actions with a woman. That is penetration, insertion, manipulation, oral contact. So section 63 has all these provisions written down. So the most important thing here to note is that section 63 of the BNS only sees a man as a perpetrator and a woman as a victim. It does not see a woman or any other gender as a perpetrator at all. Now, let's understand where this all started. Okay, India had the Indian Penal Code, that is the IPC, which came into force on January 1st, 1862. And this is why this is known as a colonial era law. So in 2024, that is on July 1st, 2024, when the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita replaced the IPC, it was seen as a modern move. That is India getting a historic new law, moving from the old colonial era law, outdated law to a modern law. Then the question is, if BNS is a new law, it's a modern law, then why is it that it is not gender neutral? So the question also that one needs to ask here is the IPC's old law, was it gender neutral? Yes or no? And the answer, and the shocking answer is yes, because the IPC had section 377. Now, section 377 has a negative side to it because everybody relates it to homosexuality because it was criminalized at one point in time. So therefore, it has a bad side to it. But in 2018, as we all know, Section 377 was read down and homosexuality was decriminalized. But the good side of Section 377 is this, that under Section 377 of the Indian Penal Code, non-consensual sexual acts against the order of nature are punishable with imprisonment for life or with imprisonment of either description for a term extending up to 10 years alongside a mandatory fine, which means that under Section 377 of the Indian Penal Code, if a man or a trans person is raped, if there is any non-consensual sexual acts, it can be booked, which means that a man or a trans person is violated, they have a legal recourse. So then the question is, in 2024, when the BNS came in, why is it that the protective layer of Section 377 not adopted? Why did BNS leave out so many people out of its protective cover when it comes to rape? That is a big question that we are asking. So to answer this question, in Delhi High Court, there are several petitions that are doing the rounds, which is speaking about this very case. In fact, the first petition that I'm going to talk to you about is the petition of Dr. Chandresh Jain. Now, Dr. Chandresh Jain, he speaks about trans persons. He says that Section 63 of the BNS is unconstitutional. It leaves transgender persons out of its purview and therefore it is violative of constitutional rights. So Chandresh Jain had filed his petition in the Delhi High Court in August 2025. And the core argument of Chandresh Jain is that transgender persons have no real protection under India's sexual offence laws, that is the BNS 2023. The BNS 2023 frames rape and most sexual offences around a female victim, so trans persons fall outside. So what Dr. Chandresh Jain speaks about is, he's speaking for trans persons, and he says that Section 63 of the BNS is unconstitutional. Now the second petition that came before the Delhi High Court, again speaking about how violative Section 63 of the BNS is the petition of Barkha Nagar. Now Barkha Nagar, again, like Dr. Chandresh Jain, filed a petition before the Delhi High Court on 14th October 2025. And the core argument of Barkha Nagar is that the definition of rape itself under Section 63 of the BNS, she says, is unconstitutional because it is gendered. It only recognizes a man as the offender and a woman as the victim. Her point is that this leaves adult male, transgender and non-binary victims of rape with no protection at all, which she says violates Article 14, 15 and 21. Now, if you carefully look at Barkha Nagar's petition, there is one big problem, because if you look at the synopsis of a petition, she speaks about what are the corrective measures that needs to be put in place. But then the problem is her prayer, which is the most important section, that is what she is asking before the court, she does not include any of these corrective measures. So her synopsis says, declare Section 63 of the BNS as unconstitutional for being discriminatory, arbitrary and violative of Article 14, 15 and 21. Frame and enact gender-neutral laws addressing adult sexual violence based on consent and act, not gender. And provide interim guidelines to protect the rights of all victims of sexual assault in line with the decision in Vaishakha versus State of Rajasthan 1997. So even when Barkha Nagar speaks about all the corrective measures in her synopsis of a petition, in the main prayer, she does not include that. So what does her prayer say? So her prayer only talks about two things. She says, issue an appropriate writ or any other appropriate writ declaring Section 63 of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023 as unconstitutional, illegal and void, being violative of Article 14, 19 and 21 of the Constitution of India. B. Pass such other orders or directions as this Honourable Court may deem fit and proper in the facts and circumstances of the present case and in the interest of justice. So she speaks about how Section 63 must be removed. But then what should be put in place? What are the corrective measures? She does not speak about that. So therefore, now we have two petitions, one of Dr. Chandresh Jain, which speaks about trans persons. Number two, we have the petition of Barkha Nagar, which says that yes, BNS is bad, but then she does not put in place in her own writ petition, she doesn't say what are the corrective measures that needs to be taken. And that's why the third petition that we are talking about is very important. Now this third petition was filed by Shubhi Srivastav, SK Srivastav and a group of other individuals. And this petition was filed on 6th October 2025. So why this petition is important is because this is a comprehensive petition. It's not only talking about trans persons. It's not only talking about women. It's talking about all affected parties. In fact, this petition is even talking about animals. It says there are 14 sexual offence provisions of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023. That is Section 63, not just Section 63, Section 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 72, 73, 75, 77, 78 and 81, covering rape, aggravated and child rape, sex by a person in authority or by deceit, gang rape, sexual harassment, voyeurism and stalking. So it speaks about 14 sexual offences and it says all these sexual offences are not gender neutral. It only talks about women. It only sees women as victims of rape and it only sees a man as a perpetrator. So therefore there is no legal recourse if a man or a trans person, a trans man or a trans woman or a person from a third gender is raped. They don't have a legal recourse at all. So in this petition, they're also talking about how did they decide to file this petition. They're saying that the lawyers got in touch with a lot of police personals and the police officials told them that a lot of trans persons, a lot of men are actually coming to our police stations to get FIRs registered because they have been raped. But unfortunately, we don't have the provisions. The Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita does not have the provisions. So then I also personally spoke to the lawyer who filed this petition. So he says that he actually spoke to an SHO and got a lot of details, shocking details about how the BNS does not have this protective layer to protect trans persons or animals or men who are victims of rape. And then he says that's when he decided to move this petition before the Delhi High Court. What are the prayers of these petitioners? These petitioners have three alternative prayers. They say, declare the 14 sections unconstitutional, issue mandamus directing the union to seek the indulgence of parliament to make them gender neutral and to cover animals or authoritatively clarify their scope. Alongside an interim application, ask the court to direct the Delhi Police Commissioner and all SHOs to register FIRs for these offences against men, transgender persons and animals while the case was pending before the Delhi High Court. So what did the court do? The court made an observation. The court said that we cannot ask the parliament to legislate. It's the parliament's job to legislate. The judiciary cannot get into that domain. So therefore, the court dismissed this petition and the court said that you're free to seek intervention in a related pending case, which means that you can go back to the other cases which are also pending before the court, which is the Chandresh Jain or the Barkha Nagar's petition. You're free to seek intervention there. So then what happened is, several months passed, but these petitioners, they kept on. Now, very recently, they filed a fresh petition. They moved a fresh petition before the Delhi High Court. And in that petition, once again, they sought permission from the Delhi High Court, saying that this is a very serious matter. India needs gender neutral laws. Please give us permission to file a comprehensive petition. Once again, and the Delhi High Court granted these petitioners that permission. And finally, very recently, that is on 30th July 2026, a fresh comprehensive petition covering all the affected parties was filed by these petitioners before the Delhi High Court. So this petition is a comprehensive petition. They are talking about all affected parties and they're also including necrophilia. Now, what is necrophilia? Necrophilia is a psychological condition and sexual behavior where a person feels sexual attraction to dead bodies. It involves having sex with dead bodies. Now, what this petition says is, even in countries like Pakistan, which still retains Section 377, amended its penal code in 2024 to punish the violation of dead bodies. It says that necrophilia is illegal. Even in the UK had criminalized the sexual penetration of a corpse through Section 70 of its Sexual Offences Act 2003, and in India we still do not have any provision for this. So they're talking about necrophilia, they're talking about protecting men, they're talking about protecting women also, they're talking about protecting trans persons, they're also talking about protecting animals. So this is a comprehensive petition which was filed by these petitioners. So on 12th August, this very important case came up for hearing, and the Delhi High Court finally decided to hear this case on October 7th. And now what has the Delhi High Court done? The Delhi High Court has tagged this particular petition with another related petition, and that petition was filed by Gantavya Gulati. So Gantavya Gulati's petition is also very important because Gulati had approached the Delhi High Court in 2024 and asked that a Section 377 equivalent protection against non-consensual sexual acts be restored for the safety and dignity of individuals, particularly those from the LGBTQIA+ community, following the gap left by the BNS. So Gantavya Gulati is now talking about LGBTQIA+ community members whose rights are also violated because of Section 63 of the BNS. So now we have Chandresh Jain, who speaks about trans persons. We have Barkha Nagar, who says the rape law is unconstitutional and therefore it has to be struck down. And then we have Srivastava's petition, which speaks about everything. It's a comprehensive, holistic petition. And now we have Gantavya Gulati's petition, where Gantavya Gulati is speaking about LGBTQIA+ community and how their rights are violated. So now what the Delhi High Court has done is the Delhi High Court has tagged Srivastava's petition along with Gantavya Gulati's petition, and this entire case is now going to be heard on October 7th. So what is important here is to understand why Gantavya Gulati's case is very important to this entire scheme of things. Now, Gantavya Gulati in 2024, when he approached the Delhi High Court, the government was also there. The government representative was also there. And the government representative told the court that let this be seen as a representation before the government. So, which means that let Gantavya Gulati file a formal representation before the government saying that these are his prayers or these are his complaints that LGBTQIA plus community members' rights are being violated because Section 63 of the BNS does not have any protective layer to protect them from rape. Then the government will decide, will speak to all the stakeholders and decide on this case. So the court also thought it to be the right way to go about it. So the court asked Gantavya Gulati to go and make a representation before the government. And if the government does not do this, does not find a solution within a reasonable period, then the court said you can come back to us. Now what has happened is, after a couple of months, Gantavya Gulati realized that the government was not coming forth with any reply. So again, Gantavya Gulati comes back to the court in 2025 and says that the government has not responded to us. So look at what the government has said. Here again, the government representatives come before the court and the government representative says that we need more time. In fact, look at this. On 20th January 2026, the court had directed the Learned Council, that is a representative of the Union of India, to obtain instructions. So Shivam Sachdeva, the Learned Council representing the Union of India, has stated that the subject matter of the representation to be decided is sensitive, which can be done only after gathering the views of all the concerned stakeholders. He states that the process of decision on the representation is going on. However, the same is likely to take some more time. So basically, the government went back to the court and said that yes, this is a very important issue. This is a sensitive issue. It will take time. So we need to talk to all stakeholders and we need more time. So again, time was given. And now we are in August. So Gulati again goes back to the court and says that it's been 1.5 years now and the government has still not responded. And the court also finds that 1.5 years, 1.5 to 2 years is a reasonable time. The government had enough time to respond to Gantavya Gulati, which the government did not do. And therefore, the court decided to hear Gantavya Gulati's petition again. And the Delhi High Court decided to hear his petition in the month of September. But then Srivastav's petition was filed before the Delhi High Court and the court decided to tag both these petitions and hear it together on October 7th. So what is going to happen on October 7th? On October 7th, we are hopeful that the Council for the Union Government would come and also say what it did since 2024, since the time Gantavya Gulati had gone with a representation to the Union of India asking about what are you doing to protect the LGBTQIA community. So we are expecting that on October 7th, the government will say what it has already done. But the question that we are asking is this: why is the government dragging its heels? Why did it take 2 long years for the government to actually respond to Gantavya Gulati? So it's also important to understand here that while drafting the BNS, Parliament's own Standing Committee on Home Affairs, headed by Brij Lal, specifically flagged this. What Brij Lal said is this in writing, that dropping 377 would leave men, transgender persons and bestiality unpunished, and they recommended keeping that protection. So what the government did is that the government did not accept it. So which means that the government was warned about it by their own committee and the government decided to go ahead anyway. So what we need to understand here is also the fact that the court, the Delhi High Court, is also in a tight spot, because the Delhi High Court, when the hearing was going on, consistently kept saying that we cannot ask the parliament to legislate because that is the parliament's job. So the Delhi High Court is very conscious of that fact that they cannot ask the parliament to legislate and it is the parliament's domain. But at the same time, now the Delhi High Court has also got a little bit of room, because the court is also equally conscious of the fact that the court is also duty bound to protect the rights of its citizens. So defining an offense is in the domain of the legislature, but the government had the time. The court had given the government time to decide, talk to all the stakeholders and take a conscious call, but the government did not do anything for 2 years. Therefore, the court now has a reasonable ground to intervene in this matter in the interest of the citizens of the country, because this is a violation of their constitutional rights. So now at the most what the court can do is the court can ask the government, why is it that you did not act for 2 years? What are you going to do about it? Why is section 63 of the BNS violating the rights of men, trans persons and all the other affected parties? And how are you going to correct it? And what corrective mechanisms are you going to put in place? The court can ask the government to respond, and the government is duty bound to respond. So we are all hoping that on October 7th, the Delhi High Court will take a call on this. But then let's look at what's happening in other countries. In Canada, they replaced their old law with gender neutral rape law way back in 1983. That is over 40 years ago. And in the United Kingdom, under its Sexual Offences Act of 2003, it defines its offences so that victims of either sex are protected. Not only in Canada or in the UK, in many progressive countries across the world, there are gender neutral rape laws. Even in countries like Australia, even in South Africa, they have gender neutral rape laws. Then the question is, in India, why do we not have gender neutral rape laws? And how long will it take for us to draft these laws? Now think about this. What is a law really saying? If a woman is raped, it is rape. It is a crime. If a man or a trans person is raped, it is not rape. It is not considered to be a crime. But that can't be right. Rape is rape. Rape is a violation of a human being. It cannot check your gender first. And a law that just protects some victims and turns its back on the other victims is not just incomplete, it's unjust.